Theseus. If I were to go over everything he is credited for, accomplished or messed up, I'd run out of soundtrack, which, by the way, is William Tell's Overture by Umberto Rossini. I will simply recount the story of his parentage and how this led to his father's death. Aegeus, the king of Athens, was desperate for a male offspring. He was twice married and had yet to produce an heir. So he went to the oracle at Delphi to seek advice from the Pythia. She delivered, as always, a very cryptic warning he could not interpret. Do not loosen the bulging mouth of the wineskin until you have reached the height of Athens, lest you die of grief. Remember that. It's important. On his way back to Athens, he spent the night in Troezen, whose king, Theseus, was renowned for his wisdom. Upon hearing Aegeus' message from the Pythia, Theseus immediately understood it and plied Aegeus with wine. Aegeus, now drunk, was introduced to the king's daughter, Aethra, and they slept together. During the night, Athena came to the young woman in a dream, instructing her to wade to the neighbor island of Sphaera and to pour a libation to Spiros and Poseidon. There, the sea god took possession of her. Having slept with both a man and a god in the same night, it is believed this gave her offspring dual parentage and both mortal and immortal qualities. The next morning, Aegeus, having realized Aethra was Theseus' daughter and that she may be with child, hid his sword and sandals under a heavy boulder, instructing her that if she bore him a son, to wait until he was old enough and strong enough to lift the rock and to bring both items back to his kingdom in Athens as proof of his parentage. Theseus grew up with his mother and grandfather away from Athens, but when he came of age, his mother brought him to the boulder, which he lifted with ease. Told of his Athenian royal lineage, Theseus set out against his mother's pleas to take the safe route to Athens by ship, on a heroic journey by land, on a route filled with thieves and murderers. Theseus performed many great deeds on his travels, and word got around. In fact, before he got to Athens, King Aegeus had heard stories of this young hero and offered him hospitality when he came to the city, though he was suspicious of the stranger and his intentions. For you see, Theseus did not immediately disclose who he was, but Medea, the sorcerer's queen who had in the meantime married Aegeus and given him a son called Metis, recognized him immediately and tried to devise a plan to get rid of him, to protect her own son's rights to the throne. Medea had Theseus take on heroic trials to kill him, but Theseus overcame them all. Finally, she convinced the king that Theseus wanted to usurp the throne by gaining the admiration of the Athenian people, and he agreed to have him poisoned during dinner. As Medea was handing the cup to Theseus, King Aegeus recognized his sandals and sword. The king knocked the cup out of Theseus' hands and embraced his son in pride. Medea then fled with Metis to Asia. Theseus stayed with his father, but it would not last. Several years before, King Minos of Crete had lost a son, assassinated in Athens. Minos set sail in warships to Athens, demanding the head of those responsible, and in exchange he would spare the city. However, Aegeus, not being able to find the culprits, offered the entire city to Minos' mercy. In his desire for revenge, Minos then demanded that the Athenians send 7 virgin maidens and 7 young men every 7 years to Crete as tribute. The youths were then thrown in the labyrinth to be devoured by the Minotaur. The third time the deadline came, Theseus, now in Athens, volunteered to take the place of one of the tributes and kill the Minotaur. Understandably, the king was not fond of the idea. Theseus promised him that, if successful, he would change the ship's black sails to white on his way back home, and he took off yet on another adventure. When he arrived in Crete, he seduced Ariadne, daughter of Minos. She provided him with a weapon and a ball of thread. He killed the Minotaur and found his way out of the labyrinth by following the thread back to the entrance. Along with the other tributes in Ariadne, he then fled Crete and set sail back to Athens. We know that on his way back home, he lost Ariadne. Some say she fell overboard and drowned. Others that he was ordered to abandon her because the god Dionysus wanted her for his own. There are even claims that, having paused on an island, the young lady fell asleep on the sand, and he left having forgotten about her. In all cases, the loss of Ariadne is meant to explain the tragedy that befell his father, for Theseus was either too distraught from having lost Ariadne or was naturally forgetful. Whatever the reason, Theseus still neglected to change the black sails back to white upon his arrival to Athens. King Aegeus, who was eagerly awaiting his long-lost son's return, upon seeing the black sails, assumed his son had failed and died at the hand of the Minotaur. Stricken with grief, he threw himself into the Aegean Sea that now bears his name. Remember the warning from the Pythia? Do not loosen the bulging mouth of the wineskin until you have reached the height of Athens, lest you die of grief. It meant not to partake in wine drinking before getting back safely to Athens, lest he died of grief. However, Aegeus got drunk at Pythia's table and took his host's daughter to bed. That union produced Theseus, who by his forgetfulness would ultimately be responsible for his father's suicide. According to Aristotle, a tragedy is a depiction of a great character experiencing a reversal of fortunes due to either a great flaw they have or a grave mistake they made. The situation is made that much more dire by its inevitability, which can bring the character to the revelation of his human condition when confronted to fate or destiny. In other words, hindsight is 20/20. In many ways, this was not only the story of Theseus, but also of his father. That is why I chose William Tell's Overture. William Tell was forced to shoot an arrow through an apple that had been placed precariously on his son's head. William did not miss, but when asked by the king why he had quivered 2 arrows instead of just 1, William responded that had he missed and killed his son, he would have used the second arrow on the king. But that can be a story for another time. I simply found that the relationship between father and son to be at the cornerstone of this story, and I wanted a musical piece that underlined that idea. Again, I used Kremer Pigments watercolors along with Finetec Pro colors in Inca Gold. As always, if you enjoy these little stories, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Ciao!